All right. Well, good evening. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and this is Carbon Matters live streaming, 27 October 2022, a beautiful Thursday evening, a great sunny afternoon here in the county seat of Jim Thorpe on the polls. And we're so fortunate to have about 250 so citizens who do work at the polls, either as judges or the standard poll workers, and they're at 51 locations throughout Carbon County. Talking about voting, pay to preserve, Times News. Carbon voters face a land decision, right? A referendum would provide funding to help us preserve forest and farm, right? Preservation. And that's what we're going to turn to in just about 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to bring on representatives from Carbon County citizens for, I'm going to say, Water, Farms, and Land, WFL, like World Football League. I try to keep that in my mind to have to remember it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break away for about 2 minutes. I'm going to bring up a couple-minute video, and I'm going to bring up our representatives who are going to help us better understand the issue, the referendum question that we're going to be voting on. So just stand by. So let me go ahead and get the video ready to go here. And then we'll go ahead and make the switch over to our next really laser focused conversation in regards to the ballot measure. Screen share here.
And working farms are part of our way of life. And now we can protect them for future generations. Voting yes for water quality, working farms, and wildlife habitat protection will protect clean water in our rivers, lakes, and streams. It means protecting Carbon County's drinking water sources. And voting yes will preserve working farms for our children and grandchildren. This November, vote yes for Carbon County Water, Farms, and Land.
All right, well, we're live. Good evening. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and I'm so fortunate to be joined by Lee, Dan, and Dennis. Carbon County citizens for water, farms, and land, WFL. I try to keep that little mnemonic or that little acronym in my mind so I get it straight. I want to thank all three of you for joining me. I wonder if we could start with maybe a brief introduction from each of you. One, your full name, your background, and what brought you to the point, I guess, in this campaign to see success in the ballot measure that we're going to be talking about over about the next 30 minutes. Can we start with you?
Sure.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yep. I'm Lee Kunkle,
Yep.
and I have lived in Carbon County most of my life.
Mhm.
I grew up in Montgomery County, but since college, I have lived here, raised my children here. I have grandchildren in Carbon County, and I am a retired teacher from Palmerton Area School District. So children in Carbon County mean a lot to me, and that's mostly why I got involved. I asked myself, what are we leaving behind for our children? And it got me on board to help out.
Okay, and Dan, how about you? If you tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm Dan Kunkle. I was the founding director of the Lehigh Gap Nature Center. And that was quite an endeavor there that we did to turn a Superfund site into an environmental education center. It's the only one in the country that has ever been turned into an environmental education center. And so that was a unique experience. And on January 1st, I retired fully from there. And by the end of the month, this guy here on my right had called me and informed me about what was going on here. And it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. I couldn't say no to. This is so important. Dennis and I have done a lot of pretty good work in conservation in Carbon County. This was an opportunity to do the most important thing we could think of for the future of this county.
That's great. And then let's turn it over to Dennis. Dennis, obviously for many, you don't need an introduction, but for those who may not be familiar with you and the work you've done as a private citizen and as a county employee even, right?
Yes, I'm a lifelong resident of the county. Born and raised up in Tresco, over the Broad Mountain, but had the opportunity to work as an intern in the planning office in 1974, and can't believe it's almost a 50-year time period. Was involved with the planning office and then was selected to be the first full-time park director. With park was dedicated in 74, and so I began working at the park and was there for 24 years. And it was just an amazing opportunity. The basic recreation facilities were there, but we were able to add on with grant funding that got good at writing grants to bring money into the county, put a new roof on the barn and started the environmental center, all of the trail work, the campgrounds, there's so much there. And then was involved with the Delaware and Lehigh Heritage Corridor. So I saw the tremendous connection of Carbon County with now the number 9 mine is open as a tourist attraction. The Lehigh Canal Recreation Commission and the Canal Park and the DNL Trail. So I then, after 24 years, got a job with the state. So I was with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I was the Northeast supervisor. So I went from writing grants to reviewing and helping to approve grants. And again, worked with a lot of organizations in the county. And then retired in 2013 and was with the DNL for a while. We finished the bridge in Jim Thorpe. And really, Carbon County is the first of the 5 county DNL Heritage Corridor with a completed trail from Whitehaven area all the way down through Lehigh Gap and into Slatington.
Wow.
So we completed the connection behind, which was the Red Castle Grill in Lehighton, and then the crossing at 895 into the boat launch. And so, my whole career has been working in and for Carbon County. I'm now a conservation outreach coordinator with the Wildlands Conservancy. And the commissioners helped complete a rivers conservation plan years ago. And the Wildlands Conservancy really is focusing on the entire watershed. But it was about 2 years ago that Dick Fetter, the chairman of the Ag Land Preservation Board, came to me and said, he was frustrated. He kind of knew my background. He said he was frustrated. He needed help, and that the county was only able to give $25,000 a year. There were all these farm families ready to preserve their farms, and there wasn't enough funding. So I put him in touch with Northampton County's program, and then we did the financing feasibility study, as you know, and really, the commissioners took that bold action in 27 January of this year sign a resolution to put this on the ballot.
Well, we're gonna go back a little bit. No,
Right.
that's a great lead in and great context. And it's clear to see how your background leads to a passion
Right.
that you continue to serve and pursue. And I think that's wonderful. So I'm gonna take you back to May of 2019. Sergeant Major retired Mary Ann Llewellyn. She's out talking to people about posting campaign signs. She runs into this, let me use the term, this farmer up there behind the, 443, the turnpike, happens to be Dick. He goes, well, this person you're campaigning for, what does he think about ag land preservation? She goes, well, why don't you give him a call and find out? So Dick gives me a call. I tell him what I think about ag land preservation, what we need to do. And obviously I know, Kenny Bonds and the farm right up the road here. And we had a good conversation. Then about March of 20, COVID is kicking in. I reach out to Heritage Conservancy. I don't know, Chris Kearns, Jeff Marshall,
Right.
brought them to an ag land preservation board. We held it out at Mock Chunk Lake Park under one of the pavilions because of that. We started talking and we brought him in because we're trying to figure out, how could we increase our ag land preservation resources? And part of it was talking a bit about, a ballot initiative. And he said, you know what, I'll tell you who you should probably talk to. And he said, your name. And then, and again, part of that, so all these parts come together and reinforce each other. It gives me goosebumps.
Right.
And I had no doubt, knowing your background, that you were the right contact to move this forward. And you proved incredibly perfect to do that. And that resulted in you coming and helping, I'm going to tell you, selling the idea of doing this study, because it wasn't a done deal. Might have been for one of us, maybe for two of us, but not necessarily for all three of us. Again, you only need two, but again, nonetheless, your presence and your background, your gravitas, your bona fides helped sell getting this done and bringing together the county and three different other organizations to make this a reality. And I'm going to start with you, Dennis. If you could talk a little bit about this study that was published in March of 2021, and it was presented publicly, and we have made it available and continue to make it available so people understand really the ballot measure. I continue to push out. But can you talk a little bit about what went into this study and what was its ultimate purpose, and then the results? And then we'll start talking a little bit about, what was the end result of this, which really is the ballot initiative.
Right. I mean, the first of all, when you're working on a project of this scale, you go to the experts. And with my work with DCNR, I knew of the work of the Trust for Public Land that works on these initiatives throughout the country and has helped complete 10 different counties in Pennsylvania. And to successfully pass ballot initiatives. So obviously the simple question is the county able to take on this $10 million in debt? And so this entire study was to go very much in depth as to the debt service of the county, the budget of the county, and the capabilities of the county to prove that it's feasible and it can be done.
Can you talk a little bit about the makeup, the composition of Carbon County now as it comes to preserve, protected land versus developed land?
About 1/3 of the county is already protected.
Okay.
And with state parks, with game lands. And again, and I should have brought it in with me tonight, that the county comprehensive plan and greenway plan really looks at about another 30,000 acres of forested lands that could potentially be connected. And it's just identified in a very general sense. Okay, not specific properties or anything like that, but just the greenway connectivity that really the municipalities heard about Tuesday night at our municipal training of just trying to connect green space so that when we write grants to add additional property, say to the game lands or the Bureau of Forestry or state parks, we look at what is already protected. So it's kind of putting pieces of a puzzle together. And so that's really showing the need that when you gave the history of how the ag came about. If you remember at one of the planning commission meetings that I'm on, I said, Chris, would you consider open space as another component to this? So there's really two pieces to this: the ag preservation and the open space with forest land.
No, that's great. And so this document ended up concluding that $10 million was an amount of money that would be likely acceptable to the residents of Carbon County and was sufficient enough to start making roads in the way of protecting water, farms, and the land.
Well, the companion with that was a survey we did last summer, 2 summers ago.
You're right.
All time zips by here. And we tested how much the average Carbon County resident would be willing to pay. And the 10 million seemed to be the optimum amount. That was over 50% that was willing to do that.
Right. No, and that's right. We know there's electoral debt and non-electoral debt. The commissioners could have made the decision on our own. Let's just go ahead and do it. But again, I think it's great the opportunity to get the feedback, from the citizens. And this is really, for me, what the ballot measure is about, of getting us a true sense of the community. Now, I will say, look, we expect about 21 to 22,000 voters in this election. So we're looking at percentage comparable from 2018. So that's really only about a third of county residents who are going to be voting on this issue. And I clearly hope all of them do indeed vote on this particular matter. So, but it does give a good sense for the commissioners of what the community is thinking. You mentioned the commissioners decided, well, let's go ahead. Let's accept the recommendation, put it on the ballot. So how did this come about right here?
Well, again, there's a playbook with the conservation organizations who have done this. So they came to me and they said, we need a committee, we need a chairperson, we need a treasurer, we need all these things. And I called this guy up a week after he retired. And said, Dan, will you chair the citizens committee? And Dan Inley.
And I talked to my wife.
I was wondering the recruitment here.
And I talked to my wife first, and Lee said, this is so important for our grandchildren. Let's do it. And so Lee my name is on as the chairperson, but it's really Lee and I and Dennis that are working together to lead this. It's leadership here. And we have a lot of people in Carbon County that are supporting us. They donated to the campaign, they endorsed the campaign, and we formed a 15-member campaign committee, all Carbon County residents, all longtime Carbon County residents. And that is who is directing the campaign. And so this is a homegrown Carbon County campaign to support this bond issue.
Lee, do you want to talk a little bit about the ballot measure itself? And at the same time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to screen share the actual ballot question. But if you could talk a little bit about it, let's go ahead and bring it up here. Hold on. Let me do a screen share. I have this.
Go ahead.
Ballot measure. There we go.
Go ahead and talk about it. You can do it.
I usually don't talk about the ballot measure. I usually just talk about the impact it has on children.
Well, let's talk about that. Go ahead, start there.
We have met so many wonderful people in Carbon County talking about, informing people about the ballot measure, telling them that we want people to be aware, first of all, that's going to be on the ballot, so they don't forget to flip over the ballot and answer the questions. Basically, we're asking people if they would support the county borrowing up to $10 million, which would not be borrowed all at once and at the same time. And that money would then be used as like seed money to buy forested land, to preserve forested land, to preserve working farms that provide food for us in the community, and to preserve our water sources. And one of the things that I said that I was saying is that I talked to the children. Well, I just taught a lesson at the nature center. At one of the field trips, we had fourth graders come in last week, and I was teaching the water cycle. And these were children from Lehighton, and I said, okay, do you guys know where your water comes from? And some of them said, the sewer,
All right.
the river,
Uh-huh.
pipes.
Mhm.
And I said, well, you're all kind of close, maybe the sewer one, but actually your water in the borough of Lehighton comes from a reservoir that is protected by forested land. The streams that feed into this reservoir is protected by forested land, which keeps the water clean. And I said, so what do you guys think? Should we keep our forests? They're like, well, yeah, of course we want to do that. So basically that's been my involvement talking to the kids.
Well, interesting, you mentioned, so Lehighton Water Authority. So as my daughter Molly and I each evening about 7 o'clock sit on that couch right there, look out that window, and we look up on top of Bear Mountain, we're looking at Lehighton Water Authority property, and that helps feed and protect, purify, and ensure that water it is clean.
Yeah.
And our waterways all over the county need that kind of protection. And that's one of the things we hope to do with this funding. And I think something Lee said was really important. This is seed money. This is not the only money that will be used. This is the match. When you go to apply for funding from DCNR, from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, or the Ag Land Preservation Program, that's the county money is only a small part of the total funding. So we might spend over the next 20 years $10 million, but that might turn into 20, 30, even $40 million. Because the Ag Preservation Program, as much as 80% comes from the state and only 20% from the county at times. And for the other land, at least half comes from the state, usually for a purchase. And so we expect that this $10 million is a really good investment because of that kind of money that's going to be coming from outside the county.
Right, so it has a multiplying
Absolutely.
factor or effect.
And we're focusing on urgency. People will say, and this is a great legitimate question. Well, there's already an ag program. There's DCNR has an open space program, and we've preserved some land. But I thought of this analogy, and it's not perfect. It's an entity that's renting and an entity that owns property, and the county is like a homeowner that owns property. And when money is needed for a project in a very sensitive time way, this renter can't get a home equity line of credit. Okay, there's no equity there. The county, this bond referendum is like a home equity line of credit, so that when land becomes available, that again goes through a whole list, a checklist of scrutiny of its conservation value, and that land trust or conservancy or municipality applies for funding. The county has their home equity line of credit to help to put, whether it's 25% or 50%, to make the project happen in a quicker way. These projects take years. The ag program to preserve a farm may take 2 to 3 years. If there's 15 applications, it's going to take 25, 30 years. Well, I don't know the age of these farmers, but I could imagine we don't feel we can wait 30 years. That there's a timeliness to the development pressure, and we're only trying to focus on the best land. And so basically, as I thought through this, I thought, how could I give a simple example? It's a home equity line of credit that the county has sitting there, and we estimate Because people might say, well, how much is it going to cost me with my
Sure, yeah,
tax bill, my assessed value?
yeah.
And the study showed that it's 15 cents per 1,000 assessed value. Now and again, that is, we're assuming very conservative and kind of worst case scenario,
Mhm.
because we use we say $21, $21.50, or $22 a year.
Right,
That's if we borrowed all the money.
all 10 million in
right.
one fell swoop.
I looked at my neighborhood in Franklin Township, and it would be $12 to $15 based on our assessed value of a 2-acre lot and a nice home.
Yeah,
But that's if we borrow the 10 million.
Right.
So to me, within the next 5 years, there could be a $3 to $5 need for the debt service that the
Right.
county would need.
Yeah.
And for us, when you think about how quickly you drop $3 to $5,
it's a coffee.
On
It really is.
right.
It's a specialty coffee.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm not diminishing the impact. Nobody wants to see a
Right.
tax increase, but this is so de minimis to the impact
Mhm.
that it will have and the opportunity the county will have.
No, and let me just pause there, for those who are tuning in, right? So we're talking about assessed property value. And if you are a property taxpayer in Carbon County, what I would encourage you to do, if you don't have your tax statement with your assessed value, you could go on the Carbon County property hub, through the GIS mapping office, and you can pull out your property record. And on the upper left corner, it'll give you your assessed value. Let's say it's $100,000, right? As Dennis was saying, for each $1,000 in value, for example, if it was a $5 million bond issue that was taken out, it'd be 7 cents for every $1,000 of that of value, right? So real simple to figure out exactly how it impacts you, right? It was nice throwing out the $22 for an average home, 149,000, stuff like that. That's a good ballpark figure. But if you want to know exactly what it might cost you, be it the full $10 million measure, that's the way you go ahead and figure that one out. Now, I'd encourage you to do that, because each of us have to make decisions based upon our financial situation and balance that against what sacrifices we want to make. And it may just be eliminating one coffee, one bagel a month, right? And you'll be able to kind of contribute today and to the future. And talking about the future, I want to talk, I know on social media, I'm seeing this little stuffed animal showing up a little bit, right? Yeah, and I was surprised I was going to have him said here. So talk a little bit about that, right?
Ricky Raccoon, Ricky the referendum raccoon has been
Right.
traveling all over Carbon County,
Mhm.
getting his picture taken at iconic and beautiful places. And there are so many beautiful places in Carbon County.
Right.
And he's having a blast. He's going to be at a very special place next week. We just had him out doing some photo shoots.
Okay.
And it's just really important for us in Carbon County. We're so proud of our county.
Yes, we are.
And it's our county and we want to take care of it, right? Everyone wants to take care of it. So we just want to remind people that of all the beauty around us.
Yeah. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about, we've had a couple zoning information briefings, opportunities, engagements over the last couple of months. Talk about maybe how do we balance manufacturing? I mean, wouldn't we all love to have the zinc plant back? Or, we might for the jobs it provided, but talk about the balance between what we're trying to do, what's trying to be accomplished with the ballot measure, and then ensuring that, Carbon County residents aren't all traveling to the Lehigh Valley or up into Humboldt for good paying jobs that aren't simply service industry.
Well, I'd like to start that and then others can chime in.
Yeah.
I think it's about looking at what we would like this county to look like 20 years from now. And not just allow whatever happens happen, but to try to control the trajectory of development so we can direct the development to the places that it should be and that will benefit the county residents without destroying our natural resources. Our boroughs need help. There's a lot of places that we could fill in development, but if we keep sprawling out, we can destroy the very thing that makes the quality of life in Carbon County so special. And so we would like to see the best places preserved, and for us to be in control of where the development goes. We want development, but we want it to go at the right places. So it doesn't harm our natural resources and degrade our future.
Because there seems to be a lot of pressure seen, I think all of us believe in alternative energy. I'm a big believer in energy independence, but there has to be a balanced portfolio. It's just like you always hear about investments. You want a balanced portfolio. There seems to have been recently in the last 3 years, maybe going back about 4.5 years, a lot of pressure on our natural environment from alternative energy companies, right? Wind turbines, two potential sites, right? Penn Forest Township up in Packard Township. We're seeing pressure from solar farms. Now we have one of the biggest solar farms east of the Mississippi, right up here in Nesquahoning, but now we're seeing additional, because of the incentives that are being provided, it seems like we're seeing additional pressure, from things that we say are green, yet they could have the adverse effect, or they offset maybe the gains or values about that. How do we fit in alternative energies into what we're trying to preserve and protect? I mean, and this is something that just came to mind as we were talking.
we've got municipalities have to zone for all uses,
Right.
And we're just trying to strike a balance between what we call gray infrastructure, which is development, and green infrastructure.
Okay.
And I guess we focus on the open space side, really forested lands that have, the county has a natural heritage inventory that maybe not a lot of people know about, to look at protecting species of special concern. We want to really protect those high value trout streams.
Right.
They're just kind of holding their own, and we don't want to see them degraded. I mean, people in Carbon County who love to hunt, most of this land will be open for hunting, and fishing, and we need to preserve those. We can't destroy why people come here. They come here for the natural resources, and there's legitimate places near highways for development, and some of our anthracite lands. I mean, the Little Leaf factory up in Banks Township is just an amazing positive story of this company that moved down from Boston, and it's again because of our road network there in that in Tresco McAdoo area, and it's a clean industry, providing hundreds of jobs, and it's on where what was strip mining coal lands.
I'd like to get back to the solar farm.
Right.
When he just said on strip mining land, we have places like that. We have the West Plant site at the zinc company, for example. Those are the kinds of places to locate those solar farms.
Right.
Cutting down a forest, you lose all of those ecological values, all of the stormwater runoff, all of the cleaning up the water, and the sequestering of carbon, everything else to gain the solar energy. And that's just not a good trade-off. There's plenty of places, but we're believers in solar. We have it on our rooftop.
Okay.
And so, that's.
Yeah, but you didn't cut down your trees in your backyard to put it, right? You used existing,
Exactly. And that can happen anywhere with this, and it should happen. So.
Good. So let me jump back to the ballot question. So potential, basically giving the commissioners a sense of would the community like to use public assets, resources, $10 million. What I liked was the inclusion in the ballot measure, a citizen advisory committee. So it isn't 3 elected officials who could or could not be swayed by whatever influences. Now, again, it would be an advisory board, but I love the inclusion of that. So you can bring in, I don't know, 7, 10 individuals to help I guess, make informed decisions, right? So it's not 3 maybe individuals who have really no background or experience to really make well-informed decisions. And I think that's going to be a critical piece of this. And again, in a perfect world, what type of people or individuals would you want to bring into an advisory board to work an effort such as this, making recommendations to expend public funds, for this type of activity?
Besides Dennis.
Well, I think it needs to be a balanced group. They
Yeah.
need to be Carbon County
Of
residents.
course, yeah.
And it needs to be a balanced group, but we have people with a lot of experience in land preservation and the environment
Mhm.
here in the county that we can turn to.
Mhm.
In addition, we have, we can include other people who have more expertise in development and so forth
Mhm.
that could help serve on this.
Mhm.
So we need a balanced approach to that,
Mhm.
just like we need a balanced approach to our development.
Right.
And I think that we have the talent here in Carbon County to have an advisory board that can give the three commissioners
Mhm.
very good advice.
On how to utilize those
Mhm.
funds.
Yeah.
So if individuals wanted to get more information about protecting Carbon County, where might they go?
ProtectCarbonCounty.org.
All right, let's see if we have that available here, because I want to show, that's a great website. I don't know what, it should be on my Chrome. I apologize for that. I'm going to bring it up for those who are tuning in here. I know we had it, I did have it up earlier. Protect Carbon County. All right, let's share the screen here real quick.
Some great stories on there too.
All right, so there it is, protectcarboncounty.com. It includes, right, why vote yes, very good section, really, like, again, this is concise, succinct, this is really the bottom line up front here. I love that. That was very, very well done. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Great endorsements from community members. There's the 15 committee
right.
members who make up endorsements that have been rolling in. A significant number of individuals, names that many of us will recognize in our respective communities. You have a Facebook page set up also,
Yes.
right?
That's where they can play Where's Ricky and go back through the thing and see where Ricky
Okay,
visited.
track him
Oh,
down.
yeah.
All right, yep,
There's Ricky with the pumpkins.
Yeah,
okay,
that's Ricky
down
with the
there.
pumpkins.
all right. You hope you didn't get lost in the maze if that's out at Gentry's or something
No,
and
that's up at
stuff
Vaughn's.
like that. No, that's great. Oh, that's at Kenny's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would also add that at protectcarboncounty@gmail.com. I monitor that
Okay,
email address, and anyone that wants to send an email to protectcarboncounty@gmail.com, they'll get to me and I will answer their questions or get the answers to their questions from somebody else that knows more about it than I do.
no, that's great. So again, protectcarboncounty@gmail.com. If you have questions that you want to direct specifically to Dan, and obviously if he doesn't know the answer, he'll push it out to the individuals who can get the answer in the quickest fashion that is possible. I want to talk a little bit, again, don't want to go much into finances here, but just so the public understands with a bond issue. If the commissioners would determine after the vote takes place to go ahead and incur debt on the county's good name and good standing. I'll give you an example of let's say $1 million bond issue and how that actually works. It would be a $1 million bond issue issued for 20 years, let's say at 4% annually. So every year, what would be happen? An individual or an organization would actually buy that debt on the market. If they bought all $1 million worth of those bonds, they would get every year for 20 years 4% return on that, right? And normally what happens with bond issues, right? So you have, again, I hate to talk economics, but you should know this, right? You have par value, so that's the face value of the bond, and then you have the coupon rate, and that's the interest rate. $1 million bond, 4% interest, running $40,000 a year. And what normally happens for those types of bond, you actually get that interest twice a year. So that 40,000, an individual would get 20,000 at 6 months and 20,000 at the 12-month mark. But then at the end of the 20 years, they're also getting the face value or the par value of that back. So again, right, we're the county, or we, right, are paying interest on those bonds during the time of those bonds, and we're looking at 20-year bond issuance. It's going to be critically important, I think, if the decision is to move forward based upon the results of it, how much do we do right away? How much seed money is needed? Is it 1, 3, 5, 7, 10? Might it be all? I don't suspect that would be the case currently, but we do have to do a pretty good chunk and have that available. And I love what you're saying. You got to have that sitting there so you can strike when the opportunity presents itself. Because I think we all realize there are properties worth preserving today. There are properties that are under threat today, and we don't really have the resources to jump in there and protect them. I've been talking to Dennis about one property recently, and while I think the county might have the funds to help protect it, I would have hoped there was somewhere else we could go for a little bit more help, but help just like that just isn't there unless you have that money sitting there. So as we get ready to wrap up, a few last comments, statements that you'd like to make to the public who are getting ready to go out and make a decision on this ballot measure. And I think, again, we want to emphasize as you go to your polling place on Tuesday, make sure you flip that ballot over, because that's where the ballot question is. And when you approach the polling locations, you're going to see these signs, right? Vote yes for the referendum question on the back of the ballot, right? We're talking about protecting water quality, working farms, wildlife habitat, right? It's for this generation and it's for future generations. So but you got to go out there and vote, and you got to mark with a black, right, Sharpie, one of those yes or no's, right? Right.
Because these children here, we don't want them to have to say to their children or grandchildren, I remember when there used to be a beautiful farm here, or there used to be a forest here, or we used to have clean water.
Great.
Yeah.
Dennis, you want to?
And that's it, in closing for me, what Dan and Lee have just talked about with the long-term horizon. This is a decision today that is critical for what we want the county to look like in the next 20 to 40 years. And, I think, as I think of all the work I've been involved in, there can be somewhat of a complacency. We've all played in the woods, we've all hiked, we've all fished and hunted, and we just assume it will always be there. And we can't assume that, because there's going to be growth. And as we shared with the municipal officials, that growing greener by design, that smart growth, there's a way to grow and to grow smartly and to still preserve the precious natural resources that we have.
Right. No, great way to finish. But let's go ahead. Why don't we go ahead and see if we can pull up the promotional piece on Protect Carbon County. It's so well done. Let's see if I can get this.
Carbon County's water, natural areas, and working farms are part of our way of life. And now we can protect them for future generations. Voting yes for water quality, working farms, and wildlife habitat protection will protect clean water in our rivers, lakes, and streams. It means protecting Carbon County's drinking water sources. And voting yes will preserve working farms for our children and grandchildren. This November, vote yes for Carbon County water, farms, and land.
All right. Well, thank you. Dennis, Dan, and Lee, thank you so much for joining me. It was informational. I truly appreciate you taking the opportunity out of your evening to share the valuable gift of your time and your knowledge on the subject. I got to thank you for all of Carbon County residents or those desiring to be informed voters to being out there on a regular basis. All three of you making that effort. So again, individuals can make informed decisions, because that's what we want, informed decisions, not blindly checking a block, but understanding what they're committing to, what they're committing their tax dollars to. And I think you guys have done had a Herculean effort and a yeoman's just an incredible job getting the word out. And I think there's going to be few individuals who won't have a pretty good sense of what they're voting on the backside of that ballot on 8 November. And again, let's see what happens on it. You know, I'm hoping for about at least a 75% or stronger positive rate, you know, and I'm hoping it's even stronger. So there is no question one way or another, should we move ahead with this? We do need to do it. Again, I am no greenie, right? And again, but I love the outdoors, hunting, fish, and playing in it. And you know, our natural environment in Carbon County is under threat, both externally and internally, unfortunately, and we need to protect that and find that critical balance to ensure, you know, one, individuals who come to our community love and enjoy it, and we continue to be a magnet or become a much stronger magnet for bringing our youth back, you know, after they go off to see the world and make a difference, right?
I'd like to say one more thing.
Yeah, of course.
We have traveled this county. It's been a privilege.
Mhm.
And we've talked to all kinds of people
Mhm.
all over the county.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you that we have a polarized country today. We have seen this idea about talking about nature
Yeah.
bring people together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what your political
Yeah.
affiliation, doesn't matter what your economic status, nature matters to people in this county.
Yeah.
And we have
True.
really enjoyed getting around the county and meeting all kinds of people.
No, that's right. I love Venn diagrams, right? Even two of them, right?
Yeah.
Often, you know, there's just that little bit of circle of overlap.
Yep.
But on this particular issue, and I hear it also, there is a significant overlap. And I will tell you, I monitor social media, and truly, I might have seen 2 or 3 concerning comments.
Mhm.
But again, part of it was education that had to take place, different equities or interests the individuals may have had.
Mhm.
But again, there were good, reasonable, rational, you know, I would say unemotional questions that we want to hear from people, and we want to answer them so they can make informed decisions. Well, good night, everyone. This was Carbon Matters live streaming. What I will do, I'll go through the feed in the next 12 to 24 hours. And if there are any questions, I'll get to them. I apologize. I know most of you recognize 570-503-6780. That is an open line 22 hours a day. You can still call and talk on this topic to me anytime, and I can direct you to Dennis, Dan, or Lee if necessary. But I want to highly encourage you to get out on Tuesday if you haven't already voted. One, you do have some elections that are taking place that are pretty important, state senate, our governor race, and importantly, you know, if you really want to impact in the near term, the quality of life here in Carbon County, you really have to consider, you know, voting on the ballot question on the backside of the ballot. So this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich for Carbon Matters live streaming. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful night. We're going to have a great final fall foliage weekend, although it's not a formal festival here in Jim Thorpe this weekend. It's going to be beautiful out there on Saturday. Enjoy the last waning moments of autumn and fall and the leaves on the trees. Good night. Thank you, guys.
Carbon County's water, natural areas, and working farms are part of our way of life. And now we can protect them for future generations. Voting yes for water quality, working farms, and wildlife habitat protection will protect clean water in our rivers, lakes, and streams. It means protecting Carbon County's drinking water sources. And voting yes will preserve working farms for our children and grandchildren. This November, vote yes for Carbon County Water, Farms, and Land.